Hello and good morning friends, welcome to CEC EduSet live lecture. Dear friends, as you know that we are carrying a series on operation research. We have conducted numerous lectures on operation research, and today also we are going to talk about one of the important topics. You might or might not have heard about Markov chains or Markov processes. So today we are going to discuss on this very important topic, and for this we have again with us in our studios Dr. Subhash Kakkar. Dr. Kakkar is an eminent academician. He used to conduct various workshops, seminars at both national and international level. So taking advantage from his experience, let's welcome our guest Dr. Subhash Kakkar and understand about the process, that is the Markov process, or we could say Markov chains. Welcome to the EduSet lecture, sir.
Thank you, Gitika. Such an elaborate introduction. Good morning, viewers. Today, one more lecture in this series of lectures on operations research. The topic of today's lecture is Markov processes or Markov chains. First, we'll spend some time to understand the meaning of Markov chains or processes. We'll also discuss the application of Markov chains or Markov processes in solving management problems. Operations research, always we have tried to optimize, minimize or maximize the value of a variable or number of variables, so that we are able to solve the problem which we are facing. And today we will discuss Markov processes. In practice, we have seen how the variables assume their values. This is also one of them, where we will see how the variable, rather random variable, assume values over time. Time is passing, how the values are assigned to a random variable. And in this particular process, we see that there is a transition process. When a variable assumes one value which is at the present state and assumes a value in the future state, it can be with a reachable process or with a transient process. There is a difference between these two processes. Let's say the first state is denoted by I and the second state is denoted by j. The movement is from one state to the another state. The movement is from one state I to the second state j. And if the condition is that process can move from I to j and j to I also is possible, then this process is called reachable process. But on the contrast, if the process can take place from I to j and not from j to I, then it is called transient process. And Markov gave an idea of these transition states, and he called it a Markov process in the form of Markov chains. Markov processes are stochastic in nature. When we say these are stochastic in nature, we mean that these are probabilistic in nature and the probability is attached to these processes. According to Markov, a process, when changes its state from present state to a future state, it is dependent only on the present state and not the way the process has been carried out. It is independent of the procedure or of the way the process is carried out. It only depends on the present state and the final state is achieved. Probability Pij is denoted as the probability of moving from state I to state j, and I can have any values from 1, 2, 3 till n, and it can also have value I. When I say it can also have value I, it means it can come back to its initial state. And the final value, the future value or the future state of a variable is only dependent upon the present state and its value, and it is totally independent of the procedure what we follow for moving from present state to future state. We will understand this process with some examples, and those examples will make the things more clear to our viewers. And the application of these kind of processes is enormous. In marketing, we study the behavior of consumers. They shift from one brand to another brand. We also study the brand loyalty with respect to the customers, and this is done through Markov processes or Markov chains. In finance also, we use Markov processes to study the variation in share prices and also to study the share prices and their movement in a particular period. In production also, we have used Markov processes to study the breakdown of the machines or the breakdown behavior of the machines, how the breakdowns are occurring in a particular time period, and this again is given by Markov processes. If we are studying the brand behavior of the customers, customers are loyal to one particular brand. They keep on buying that particular brand over a time. But to some extent, some of the customers switch over to another brand, and some of the customers from the other brand come back to the first brand. At present, maybe they are enjoying some market share in the market. But if we study their consumer behavior and find that how much percentage of the customers are moving from one brand to another, with these probabilities, we can calculate the final equilibrium condition to know the exact market share of different brands with respect to a particular product. And this is done only through Markov processes and Markov chains. And similarly, if we consider 3 brands are there and there is no movement of customers from one brand, and there is a movement only in second and third brand, then stagnation will be there in first brand. And all this we have to study, and we will have answer to our management questions, queries and problems through Markov chains and Markov processes. Now we have idea of Markov processes, which is given as the probability of moving from present state to a future state is only dependent on the present state conditions and not the way in which the process has been carried out. This was given by Markov. A Markov chain, discrete time Markov chain, or simply we can say DTMC. And DTMC is discrete time Markov chain, named after Andrei Markov. Andrei Markov is the person who gave the idea of Markov chains or Markov processes. According to him, this Markov chain is a mathematical system that undergoes transitions from one state to another on a state space. And we study the movement of variables, movement of random variables over a time, how the values are being changed as far as the random variable is concerned from present state to the future state. And this idea was given by Henry Markov, and that's why we call it Markovian chains and Markovian processes. The moment the word Markov processes or Markov chain or even simply Markov comes, it means something attached to probability is being discussed. Any process with the name Markov is probabilistic in nature, and we attach due importance to the probability and we make calculations based on probability. It is a random process, usually characterized as a memoryless. The next state depends only on the current state and not on the sequence of events that have preceded it. This specific kind of memorylessness or memorylessness is called the Markov property. Markov chains have many applications as statistical models of real world processes. What we have stated in this slide is again repetition of our earlier discussion. It is a memoryless process. Nothing is memorized. It depends only on the present state and the final state is reached. It is independent of the procedure which has been used to reach the final or the future state. We call it memoryless. There is no memory is attached to this process. Nothing is memorized. This process or the variable doesn't remember what has happened to it. It changes its values only depending on the present state. Let's have one example. Let's concentrate on the slide. Market share, rather share prices are moving in the market. And how these are moving? These prices can be bullish in nature, can be bearish in nature, and it can be stagnant also in nature. But everything cannot be bullish, everything cannot be bearish, and everything cannot be stagnant. If we talk about bullish market, some of the prices remain bullish, some of the prices become bearish, and some of the prices are stagnant. And similarly, if we talk about the bearish market, again in this case, some of the prices are bearish and they remain bearish, and some of the prices move on to bullish market and some of the prices become stagnant out of this bearish market. Now we talk about stagnant prices. Some of the prices remain stagnant over a time, but some of the prices move to bullish market and some of the prices move to bearish market. In this example, we have attached probability also. How much is the movement from bearish to bullish and bearish to stagnant? Let's again concentrate on the slide. Now let's concentrate on the bearish market. From the bearish market, 80% of the prices remain bullish in a certain condition, and which is shown by 80% on the slide. A spiral coming back to this bearish market with 80% written on it. But if we see the arrow which is going to the stagnant market, from the bearish market, the probability is shown 0.05. It means that the 5% are moving from bearish market to stagnant market. And similarly, if we look at the slide, the arrow which is attached to the bullish market from the bearish market has a tag 0.15, which shows that 15% are changing from bearish to bullish market. Here we have discussed three things. Bearish market, remaining bearish is 80%, and 5% from this bearish market are moving to stagnant market, and 15% are moving from bearish market to bullish market. One segment of bearish market we have already discussed now, and the similar discussion is there for bullish market as well as stagnant market. Let's concentrate on the stagnant market. It shows that the 50%, the probability shown as 0.5, remains stagnant. From stagnant to stagnant is only 50%, whereas 0.25 is the probability attached to the movement from stagnant market to bullish market. Means 25% move from stagnant to bullish market, and similarly an arrow has been attached from stagnant market to bearish market with a tag 0.25. It means 25% are moving from stagnant market to bearish market. Now this explains the movement in the stagnant market. Now we are left with the third, which is bull market, bullish market. If we concentrate on the bullish market, there is 90% which remains bullish in nature. So that's why the arrow which goes from bullish market comes back to bullish market with a tag as 0.9 as probability. And 0.075 is the tag written on the arrow which moves from bullish market to the bearish market, which shows that 7.5% is movement from bullish market to the bearish market. And similarly, 0.025 is the tag written on the arrow which comes from bullish market to stagnant market, which shows that 2.5% is movement from bullish market to stagnant market. The point to be noted here is the movements from any node, rather bearish market, bullish market or stagnant market, are totaling up to 1.0 or 100%. The probability will always be 1, and this explains how the movements in the share market are going on. This is a hypothetical case just to explain the movement and the transient probabilities in a finance market. I think viewers are now clear about the transient probabilities and how the movements are going on and what we mean by these transient probabilities and the movements. Now again we will have this example further elaborated. Looking at the previous slide, there were three markets: bearish market, bullish market and stagnant market, and the movements were written on the diagram. And now the same thing can be denoted in the form of a matrix. First row shows 90%, 7.5% and 2.5%. Second row 15%, 80% and 5%. Third row 25%, 25% and 50%. The point to be noted here is the row summation is 1 in all the cases and the column summation will not be 1. Now we will see the calculation. Now the state at I, which is equal to 3, and we denote it by x raised to power n plus 3. N is the present state and which will be equal to x n plus 2 into p. P is the probability. P probability, the present probability multiplied by any state will give me the probability of the next state. Similarly, x n plus 2 into p is equal to x n plus 1 into p and then finally into p. This concept is to be understood so that we can move on to further calculations, and this can be simply written as x raised to power n plus 1 into p square, and finally equal to x raised to power n p square into p, and finally the answer will be x raised to power n p raised to power 3. Now start with the present probabilities. One of the market is in operation and the other two markets with 0 probabilities. That is why we have written the present probability as 0, 1, 0. All other probabilities are same as in the earlier matrix, and this matrix is raised to the power 3 as in the formula x raised to power n p raised to power 3. And similarly, if we keep on calculating after 3 stages, the final probabilities of bearish market, bullish market and stagnant market will be 0.3575, 0.56825 and 0.07425. This is nothing but 35.75%, 56.825% and 7.425%. If we add all these probabilities, the sum will be 1. This is after 3 stages, but after more stages, the things will get stabilized and equilibrium will be established, and that can be known by solving this matrix and getting answers to the values of A, B and C, where A may denote the value of the bearish market, B to the bullish market and C to the stagnant market. Now we have one example to elaborate further the meaning of Markov processes and Markov chains, how these are used to get an answer to our queries, answer to our special problems. Let us assume that Pepsi and Coke are competing with each other in a restricted market. Over the years, Pepsi's customers have exhibited a high degree of loyalty as measured by the fact that customers using Pepsi's product 80% of the time. Also, former customers purchasing the product from Coke have switched back to Pepsi's 60% of the time. Construct and interpret the state transition in terms of 1. Retention and loss, 2. Retention and gain, and also calculate the probability of a customer purchasing Pepsi's product at the end of the second period. Now, this is the problem. First, we have to understand the statement of the problem thoroughly so that we are conversant with the problem. We have gone through the problem. Now we know that there are two market players. One is Pepsi and other is Coke, and they are operating in a restricted market. What do we mean by restricted market? We mean that it is not possible that the third player can also enter the market. There are only two players and the market is restricted. And the second statement to be understood is, over the years, Pepsi's customers have exhibited a high degree of loyalty. It shows that Pepsi's customers are loyal, and which is given by the fact that 80% of the customers who are using Pepsi's product presently remain with the Pepsi in future also. And this particular fact is to be recorded, is to be noted. And the third fact which is given in the statement is, also former customers purchasing product from Coke have switched back to Pepsi's 60%. The customers of Coke who are buying Coke's products, they are going back to Pepsi, and the percentage attached to these sort of customers is 60%. So, three things we are to note. First thing, there are two players in the restricted market. This is first statement. Pepsi's loyal customers are 80%, and there are 60% Coke customers which are switching back to Pepsi's product. These three statements we have to keep it in mind while solving the problem to get replies to our queries. The first query is construct and interpret the state transition in terms of 1. Retention and loss, and retention and gain. And the second is calculate the probability of a customer purchasing Pepsi's product at the end of the second period. Now, we will demonstrate how to get an answer to these simple questions. Algebraically, conditional probabilities in the above matrix can be stated as A0, the probability A0 oblique A1. Here A is Pepsi. We can also write instead of this statement probability Pepsi 0 oblique Pepsi 1. Pepsi 0 means Pepsi's probability or market share at state 0, and then Pepsi 1 shows at the next state, means state 1. 0 is the number of the state. Present and the future, first future state, Pepsi 0 and Pepsi 1 is given by P11 and again equal to 80%, 0.80, which is recorded in the statement of the problem we have already explained. So, according to the given data, probability Pepsi 0, Pepsi 1 is 0.8. This means that the probability that the customer now using Pepsi's product at N0, present purchase, will again purchase Pepsi's product at N equal to 1, means next state is 0.8. This implies retention to Pepsi's product, which has already been explained in the problem. Loyal customers are 80%. Loyal customers means the Pepsi's product the customers are buying today and 80% will buy tomorrow also. This is the loyal customer and the percentage is given as 80%. That is why we have given the probability as 0.8. Now, this implies retention to Pepsi's product, and second is now probability Coke 0 oblique Pepsi 1. Let us understand what is the meaning of this probability and denoting it like this, probability Coke 0 oblique Pepsi 1. It is the customers which are buying Coke's product today and they will buy Pepsi's product tomorrow. This is the meaning of Coke 0 and Pepsi 1. As per the statement, 60% will buy Pepsi's product tomorrow, those who are buying Coke's product today. And again this is written in the equation also. Probability Coke 0 oblique Pepsi 1 is equal to P21 equal to 0.60. Again we have done nothing but the statement of the problem is now given in the mathematical form. And now this means that the probability that the customer now using Coke's product at N0 means present purchase will purchase Coke's product at N0, present purchase will purchase Coke's product at N1, next purchase is 0.2 only. This implies loss to Coke's product. This implies loss to Coke product. On first hand, there was a gain to Pepsi and now it is loss to Coke. Third point to be discussed regarding this problem is P probability Pepsi 2 oblique Coke 1. Again it is P12 and it is written as 0.20. Pepsi's product, some customers are switching to Coke's products because 80% are loyal customers to the Pepsi and but 20% are shifting to Coke. This is the meaning of this particular statement and it has been written into mathematical equation. I will further explain. This means that the probability that the customer now using Pepsi's product at N0 means present purchase will purchase Coke's product at N equal to 1 means next stage, next purchase is 0.20. This implies loss to Pepsi's product. Probability Coke 0 oblique Coke 1 is P22 is 0.4. It is very simple to understand. We said the people who are buying Coke's product today, 60% of them are shifting to Pepsi. So, retention is only 40%. This is what is written in the mathematical equation. Probability Coke 0 oblique Coke 1 is equal to P22 is equal to 0.4. This means that the probability that the customer now using Coke's product at N0 is present purchase will purchase Coke's product at N1, next purchase is only 0.40. This implies retention to Coke's product. We have already discussed retentions to Pepsi, loss to Pepsi, gain to Pepsi, retention to Coke, loss to Coke and gain to Coke. This can be explained further, but before that we will discuss the part B. The transition probability from state AI is equal to Pepsi at N0 to another state AJ which is equal to Coke at N is equal to 2 can be represented by two types of diagrams. One diagram is transition diagram and the second diagram is probability tree diagram. Now we will discuss first transition diagram and how it is prepared and what exactly is shown on this particular diagram. Here two nodes are shown, Pepsi and Coke. From Pepsi, 20% are going to Coke, 80% are retained. That is what is written. P12 is 0.2, 20% are going to Coke and 80% are retained. P11 is 0.80, whereas P12 is 0.20. Now, if we see the Coke side, 60% means P21 is 0.60, 60% of the customers which were using Coke's product are moving from Coke to Pepsi, whereas P22 is 0.4, 40% are retained by Coke. And this again, first we saw the statement of the problem, we made mathematical equations and now we have made transition diagram to show the same thing in this transition diagram. Same 80%, 20%, 60% and 40% are shown. But we have to see that at any stage, maybe it is first stage, maybe it is second stage and maybe it is equilibrium stage. What is the percentage of share of these two companies in the market? Now, same thing is now being shown in the form of a probability tree diagram. Here now we are showing gains to Pepsi. How we are moving from Pepsi? Let's assume Pepsi had the entire share of the market at present. The movement show that 80% of the customers are retained by Pepsi and 20% are moving to Coke. The same thing is shown in the tree diagram. 0.80 and attached to Pepsi, 0.20 attached to Coke, the first movement only. Now we see that from Pepsi again the movement is to Pepsi and to Coke. To Pepsi again 0.80 and to Coke it is 0.20. The final will be 80% are moving from first stage and 80% of this 80% is moving to the second stage. If we multiply these two probabilities 0.8 into 0.8 it is 0.64, that is why 0.64 is written in front of Pepsi's share at the top. Similarly, we have seen the 80% are moving to Pepsi and from Pepsi 20% are moving to Coke. The final Coke position will be given by the multiplication of probabilities 0.8 into 0.2 which is 0.16. And this is what is written against Coke. First we wrote against Pepsi 0.64 and next we have written against Coke 0.16. Now let us concentrate on the bottom. The movement is 20% to Coke from Pepsi which is written and from Coke to Pepsi as stated in the problem it is 60%. That is why 0.6 is written on the line which is being attached to Coke, and balance 40% are retained by Coke. So, movement is from Coke to Coke is 0.40. Now, let us calculate the probabilities. 0.20 means 20% move to Coke and from Coke to Pepsi 60%, and the total will be multiplication of these two probabilities 0.2 into 0.6 which is 0.12. So, we have written 0.2 against Pepsi, and similarly 20% are moving from Pepsi to Coke and from Coke to Coke retention is 40% and net result will be 0.2 into 0.4 which is nothing but 0.08. That is why we have written 0.08 in front of Coke. So, let us repeat now. Against Pepsi it is 0.64, next is against Coke it is 0.16, against Pepsi it is 0.12, against Coke it is 0.08. So, at second state the probabilities will be, now we will have to add Pepsi's probabilities separately and Coke's probabilities separately. If we add Pepsi's probabilities, we will have to add 0.64 plus 0.12 which is equal to 0.76. It shows that 76% of the customers are with Pepsi. Now, we calculate for the Coke. Against Coke we have written 0.16 and 0.08. Let us add these two values and this will give us 0.24. So, 24% of the customers are with the Coke, and this is the way the movement takes place. At two stages we have found that the market gets stabilized at 76% to Pepsi and 24% to Coke. Now, we have to see the equilibrium condition also. We will discuss in a moment how this equilibrium condition is achieved. Before that, we have to discuss the loss diagram also, which is with respect to Coke. This gain diagram we have seen with respect to Pepsi. Now, the same thing we will have to see for the Coke. And this is for the Coke probability tree diagram. Now, we will move from Coke. Earlier we moved from Pepsi. Now, if we move from Coke As discussed in the statement of the problem, 60% are moving to Pepsi and 40% are retained by the Coke. Again, this is what is written on the lines attached to Pepsi and line attached to Coke. 0.60 and 0.40 are written. Now, we concentrate on the Pepsi portion. From Pepsi, customers 80% will move to Pepsi, rather they will be retained by Pepsi, whereas 20% will move to Coke. Now, if we calculate the final probabilities, we will have to multiply 0.6 into 0.8, which is 0.48, which is written in front of Pepsi at the top. And regarding Coke, which is the next node to Pepsi, we will have to multiply 0.6 into 0.2, which is nothing but 0.12. And similarly, at the bottom, 40% are retained by Coke, and from Coke 60% are moving to Pepsi. That is why we have written 0.6 on the line attached from Coke to Pepsi. And similarly, 0.4 is written on the line which is attached to Coke because 40% are retained. Now, we calculate the values for Pepsi and Coke. We will have to multiply 0.4 into 0.6, which is nothing but 0.24, which is written in front of Pepsi. And now, we will have to multiply 0.4 into 0.4, which is 0.16, and this is written in front of Coke. Now, I will repeat. At the top, against Pepsi, the probability is now 0.48. Against Coke, the probability is 0.12. Against Pepsi, it is 0.24. Against Coke, it is 0.16. Now, we have to do nothing. We have to add separately Pepsi's contribution as well as Coke's contribution, and both are to be added separately. Pepsi plus Pepsi 0.42 plus 0.24, and this is 0.72. And similarly, Coke, we have to add 0.18 and 0.16, which is 0.28. So, 72% is the market share for Pepsi and 28% is the market share for Coke. And the point to be noted here is 0.72 plus 0.28 is 1. It always will 1 because the probability cannot be more than 1. Now, the same thing can be written in the form of matrix. First, we started with entire market share with Pepsi. That is why we have written 1 and 0, 100% with Pepsi, 0 with Coke, and the probabilities are written 0.8 and 0.2 like this, 0.6 and 0.4. Now, we have to calculate by multiplication of the probability. Let us see how this is to be done. 1 into 0.8 plus 0 into 0.6 is nothing but 0.8. 1 into 0.2, here on the top the second element is not 0, it is 0.2. So, that is why 1 into 0.2 and at the bottom it is 0.4. At the bottom it is 0.4. 0.4 into 0, the values will be now 0.8 and 0.2. So, 80% and 20% what we have seen if we start with entire market share with Pepsi. One stage, this is the movement. And now, again the second stage will now start with 0.8 and 0.2 because already we have reached 80% with the Pepsi and 20% with the Coke. Again multiplication will have to be done the way in which we have already written. In the matrix, the top row is 0.8 and 0.2, the bottom row is 0.6 and 0.4, and accordingly we have to multiply the two matrices and get the final result. 0.8 into 0.2 plus 0.2 into 0.6, answer is 0.64 plus 0.12, the total is 0.76. Similarly, the share for the Coke is 0.8 into 0.2 plus 0.2 into 0.4, 0.16 plus 0.08, the answer is 0.24. The point to be noted here is 0.76 plus 0.24 is 1. Similarly, the next stage, third stage also can be calculated with the help of with the help of these matrices. The third stage will get 0.6 rather 0.76 into 0.8 plus 0.24 into 0.6, answer will be 0.608 plus 0.144, 0.752, and with respect to coke it is 0.248. And the final result at equilibrium, the answer will be, we will have to solve the two equations, and long run probabilities are A is 0.8A plus 0.6B, the second equation is B is equal to 0.2A plus 0.4B, A plus B is 1. After solving these two equations, we will get the value of B as 0.25 and value of A as 75%. And this shows that at equilibrium, maybe after few stages, the market will get stabilized to 75% market share of Pepsi and 25% market share of Coke. We have seen in this process, in this problem, that the movements are there. We discussed with the first stage, we discussed with the second stage, we discussed with the third stage, and then finally we calculated the market share when the equilibrium arrives. And at equilibrium, we know the probabilities, we know the market share of these two companies. So, this is the use of Markov chains, Markov processes to know the market share conditions of different products. And this can also be said that with this Markov process, we can know the consumer behavior, how the consumers are moving from one brand to another brand. And these equations can be solved by using Cramer's rule, and this is again for the benefit of our viewers. We are telling the Cramer's rule how to solve the simultaneous equation. Cramer's rule is nothing but a method for solving a linear system of equations using determinants, and determinants are with respect to matrices. Cramer's rules may only be used when the system is square and the coefficient matrix is invertible, means determinant is not 0. And this system of equations, three equations are written: x minus y plus z is 10, x plus 2y plus 3z is 11, 4x plus 5y plus 6z is 12. And then we will convert it into matrix and we will get the solution. We will transfer the coefficients. Let us see the first, where the value of x is written. The bottom matrix is nothing but the coefficients from the initial equations are transferred. The bottom matrix is D and we will have to calculate the determinant for the main matrix, which is given by the set of equations. But the top one is dx. The x column is replaced by the solution values of the main matrix. So, first the value of x is again nothing but the x dx, means we will have to calculate the determinant of the x matrix and divided it by the main determinant of the set of equations. And this is, these values are 10, 11, 12 in the first column, minus 1, 2 and 5 in the second column, 1, 3, 6 in the third column, where the main determinant is 1, 1, 4, minus 1, 2, 5, 1, 3, 6. If we calculate the determinants and finally divide these two determinants, we will get the value of x as 31 by 12. Similarly, the value of y, here the second column at the numerator will have to be changed to solution values. Let us concentrate on the first, where the values of x were calculated. The first column is 10, 11 and 12. But in the case of y, the second column is 10, 11 and 12, because in the second column we get the values for y. And similarly, if we concentrate on the z value, the third column is solution values 10, 11 and 12. And in this way, the value of dx, dy and dz are calculated, and these are kept in the numerator, whereas the bottom portion means denominator remains the same, which is a determinant of the main problem. And look at the slide, the numerator in all the three cases is same, whereas the denominator is same in the all the three cases, whereas the numerator is changing depending on the first column, depending upon the second column, depending upon the third column, to get the determinants of dx, dy and dz. In this way, we will calculate the values of x, y and z. This is a Cramer's rule. Okay, I have just demonstrated how to get a solution to the simultaneous equations with three variables. So, here we get x equal to 31 by 12 with a negative sign, y equal to 29 by 6 with a negative sign, z is again equal to 31 by 4. So, this is the way how to use the Cramer's rule to get answers, rather solutions to simultaneous problems. Now, one more set of questions, set of equations, 2x plus y plus z is equal to 3, x minus y minus z is 0, x plus 2 plus z. Here just look at the slide, the solution column is the column at the right hand side, the values are 3, 0, 0, and if we main matrix, if we concentrate on the main matrix, the first column is 2, 1, 1, second column is 1, minus 1, 2, and the third column is 1, minus 1 and 1. And the way we have already explained, we will use Cramer's rule to find the solution to these values. If we use the Cramer's rule, then we will have to, for getting the value of x, we will have to divide dx by determinant, and for value of y, we will have to divide dy by determinant, and z determinant z divided by determinant. That is, we will get the values x is equal to 1, y is equal to minus 2 and z equal to 3. And this is the way how to use the Cramer's rule to get values for our variables where three simultaneous equations are given. Why we have given this rule? Why we have explained this rule? Because Markov chains we have to solve simultaneously equations, and sometimes it becomes difficult to get a solution to these equations. So, Cramer's rule come to our rescue to solve the simultaneous equations. So, one more example can be studied to explain the meaning of Markov processes and Markov chains. On January 1 this year, Bakery A had 40% of its local market share, while the other two bakeries B and C had 40% and 20% respectively of the market share. Based upon a study by a marketing research firm, the following facts were compiled. Bakery A retains 90% of its customers while gaining 5% of B's customers and 10% of C's customers. Bakery B retains 85% of its customers while gaining 5% of A's customers and 7% of C's customers. Bakery C retains 83% of its customers and gains 5% of A's customers and 10% of B's customers. Now, what will each firm's share be on the January 1 next year, and what will each firm's market share be at equilibrium? Here we are having three players in the market, Bakery A, Bakery B and Bakery C, and the movements are given, who are loyal customers with each bakery and how are the movements taking place. All these percentages are given. So, we are to make a matrix. How to make it matrix? We are showing it in the next slide. Initial share is given as 0.4, 0.4 and 0.2, which is 40%, 40% and 20% with respect to Bakery A, B and C. And if we translate the movements written in the statement in the form of a matrix, these will be now against A 0.9, 0.05, 0.05. Against B it is 0.05, 0.85 and 0.1. Against C it is 0.1, 0.07 and 0.83. The point to be noted again here is the summation of all the rows will be 1, and it is so also. Now, if we calculate the values after first stage, we will have to do some calculation. We are now concentrating only on the first stage. We will have to multiply 0.4 into 0.9 and again next 0.4 into 0.05 and 0.2 into 0.1. The result will be 0.4. And similarly for B, we will have to multiply 0.4 into 0.05, 0.4 into 0.85 and 0.2 into 0.75. The answer will be 0.374. The last one, the market share for C, again the same process will have to be repeated, which is 0.4 into 0.05, 0.4 into 0.1, 0.2 into 0.83, and we have to add them all. If we add them all, the result will be 0.226. Now again the same thing, the same point is to be noted, 0.4, 0.374 and 0.226. When all these are added, the answer will be 1, and it is so also. So it means our calculation is correct. At the moment first stage has come, if the percentages will be, means their market shares will be 40%, 37.4% and 22.6%. The point again here is to be noted is, we started with bakery's market share of 40%. After first stage, it remains 40%. Bakery B, we started with its market share of 40%. Now it has come down to 37.4%. But bakery C has gained its market share. It was 20%. Now it is moved to 22.6%. And this is the way how to use the Markov chains, Markov processes to see the movement of market shares in the market. Here we have seen that bakery C is gaining the market share, and at equilibrium also we can calculate using the Cramer's formula. And the same if we use, first we will have to make the equations, simultaneous equations we have already made, and the viewers can use the Cramer's rule to find out the final percentages. And if we calculate using Cramer's rule or using ordinary method, the final result will be A will be having 43%, B will be having 28% and C will be 29%. Total of course will be 100%. Okay viewers, we have explained this Markov process, how to use it and what is the application of Markov chains and Markov processes on our management problems. And this is a very good method to know the market share and the brand loyalty with respect to customers. The same can be applied in the case of finance function, same can be applied in the production function. I hope I am able to make this concept clear. I will feel amply awarded if the viewers are able to know what is Markov chain and what is the use of Markov processes. Thank you so much.
With this note, thank you sir, thank you so very much for explaining us in detail Markov chains or Markov processes, and I would like to tell you all that if you want to access this particular lecture, you can definitely access it with the help of the YouTube. Thank you sir, thank you so very much.